Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Okay. Hey, Lucy. Hey, Kath. Hey, Dark Side of the Moon. Law Review. Cat in the Hat. I know I'm here early, but late but early. Both things. I'm late and I'm early, all at the same time. So I may give a second for everybody to catch up. Hi, Larry. I have a good excuse. Been working on a new closer for the show. My friend said to me, you know, if I hear that I hit my boyfriend with my car song again, I'm going to lose my mind. So, been remixing it, keeping it fresh, keeping things fresh. Subject of today is free. Hey, Lackadaisical. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Gizzy. Subject of today is free Karen Read a cult? And this is inspired by Innocence Fraud Watch's blog about Aidan Kearney as a cult leader. And I've always been very careful not to dehumanize the free Karen Read or the Karen Read supporters, because there are good people in that group. And this is a very predatory movement. So it's a big mix of a lot of different kinds of people. So there are the criminal element you have who hate the police and really want to see an accused killer get over on the Commonwealth. There's that kind of people who relate to Karen Read. And we just, yesterday, if you were listening to yesterday's episode, I was reading the new interview in Vanity Fair with Karen Read, where she says now that she would cheer on O.J. Simpson's acquittal because of now, of course, she relates to him. She's a killer. She's an accused killer. He's an accused double murderer. She's an accused single murderer. They're her type of people. Of course, she's going to cheer them on. And you see this in this movement. So many of the people who get their convictions overturned by hook or by crook, usually with a lot of help with the innocence fraud movement, So they're guilty people who get away with it, get their conviction, and go around on an innocence tour. Amanda Knox has a new book out, by the way. It's like she'll never stop making money off her crime. It's amazing. And Americans have been so propagandized by her father's $1 million PR campaign that she's welcome on so many programs that would never have any other formerly convicted killer on their show who did the kind of gruesome crime she did. But okay. So they go right back into the movement. You see so many people overturn their convictions and go right back into the movement that helped them get away with their crimes. So they give talks for the Innocence Project, or they become poster children, adults, really, poster adults for the Innocence Project or some other wrongful conviction charity. So I was thinking, is it a cult? And I have a lot of experience, done some episodes on Scientology. I covered the whole NXIVM story from the early hearings to Keith Raniere's trial to the sentencing hearings. So I spent a lot of time. Then I covered another cult trial, Larry Ray, which was a cult that happened on my alma mater, Sarah Lawrence College, where a convict moved right from prison onto college campus housing and started a cult and really abused the children. It was really for financial predation. Sexual predation was really the name of the game with that cult. Ditto, very similar to NXIVM. But so I was thinking, well, Karen Reed doesn't have the cult of confession, doesn't need it. I don't think they demand that you confess, that so many cults do. They need you to confess that your weaknesses or your problems so that they can psychologically basically profile you. But boy, does it fit the categories of the other elements of a cult. It's not all of them, but gosh, it has a lot of them. I was surprised in researching for this episode. So we're going to look at it together. Some videos, and we'll start off, I guess, with looking at the blog that inspired this show. And this is Innocence Fraud Watch's blog. Are you being coercively controlled by psychologically Are you being coercively controlled and psychologically manipulated by cult-like leader Aidan Kearney and his innocence fraud phenomenon propaganda scam? So 14 ways narcissists can be like cult leaders. Below are excerpts from Dan Newhart's article, which are relevant to Aidan Kearney's manipulative tactics. The tactics some narcissists use to get their way in personal relationships can be strikingly similar. Hold on one second, guys. Okay. The tactics some narcissists use to get their way in personal relationships can be strikingly similar to the coercive tactics used by destructive cult leaders. If you have a spouse, family member, friend, or boss who is a narcissist, ask yourself whether any of the following 14 characteristics of destructive cults parallel your relationship with the narcissist. Cult leaders act larger than life. They are viewed as innately good, possessing special wisdom, answerable to no one, with no one above them. And that was certainly true with Keith Raniere. Said he had a 240 IQ. He ran the Nexium cult. Larry Ray had deep insight and wisdom. I mean, his followers went to him for everything psychological. And he was studying. That was also some of the evidence shown in that cult. He was studying how to brainwash his followers. He was like looking up online, like how to brainwash, how do people get brainwashed and why do people leave cults? So he was honing his skills as a cult leader as he was acting as a cult leader. So he was making sure that he didn't give his followers any reason to leave his cult. Cult members' rights are subjugated for the good of the group, leader, or cause. Members are told that what the cult wants them to do is for their own good, even if it's self-destructive. So Karen Reed is, everyone is so corrupt, the real killers are out there. Help us break the law for the ultimate aim of justice. And this is, these movements, these innocence fraud movements always use the word justice. And us versus them attitude prevails. Outsiders are viewed as dangerous or enemies. This turns members' focus outward, reducing the chances they will spot problems within the cult. In addition, viewing others as enemies is used to justify extreme actions against because of the dangers outsiders pose. So everybody who thinks Karen Reed is guilty, Aidan Kearney just wrote a piece about, there was a Boston, was it Boston Union? Was it that? It's a piece about why people were leaving the Free Karen Reed movement. And people got very mad. This writer went into the Free Karen Reed Facebook group and they were like, get out of here, lady. They just harassed the crap out of her. And she continued on and found some people who actually left and now think that Karen Reed is guilty. And Aidan Kearney responded by writing what he would call an expose. So just insulting the people that he doesn't like that are in this side of the movement, and saying that basically anybody who changed their mind, it's because they didn't like him. They were somehow rejected by Aidan. That's why they left. It's no one could possibly look at the evidence, wake up and look at the evidence against Karen Reed, which is extensive, and actually have a mind change. But okay. The leader or cause becomes all important. Members devote inordinate amounts of time to the leader in the group, leaving little time for self-care or reflection, right? They keep you overworked and without sleep. Feelings are devalued, minimized, or manipulated. Shame, guilt, coercion, and appeals to fear keep members in line. Members are led to discount. So this is one of the things they do, is they just harass the crap out of you. And so that anybody who feels Karen Reed is guilty, it's an effort to shut you up so that people don't want to be harassed, so they won't lift their voice, and therefore they monopolize all of the online propaganda. I don't know. The online content is just filled with Free Karen Reed people, because the people that you have to be really tough to speak up and say you think Karen Reed is guilty, because they will come at you. Members are led to discount their instincts and intuition and told to seek answers from the leader or cult's teaching. Over time, members can lose touch with their previous habits and values. Questioning dissent are not tolerated. The ends justify the means. Closeness to the cult and leader is rewarded while distance is punished. Cult members are on an endless treadmill of becoming. Lies are repeated so often they seem true. That's the illusionary truth effect. The more you hear something, the more you're likely to think it's true. Cult leaders enrich themselves at members' expense. Certainly enriching himself, Turtle Boy. Communication is coercive or deceptive. Sameness is encouraged. Doing what the leader wants is presented as the path to enlightenment. The article also states if you notice similarities between such techniques in your relationship with a narcissistic person, keep in mind cults and narcissists use powerful forces of manipulation, but there is nothing more magical about what they do. Understanding their methods can allow you to avoid being taken in. If someone is narcissistic, be mindful of sharing personal information with that person, as it might be used against you. In any adult relationship, you have the right to confront, prevent, or remove yourself from manipulation or coercive control at any time. You do not need to give a reason, and you do not need the other person's permission. So very thought-provoking. So I was still skeptical till I saw this video. This is from Rick Allen Ross, who was really gone after by the NXIVM cult. They also punished by litigation, and that's another thing that it looks like Free Karen Reed is starting to do, threatening to sue people. Also, they do use bait people into getting involved in the law.
There are some basic warning signs that people should look for regarding a potentially unsafe group. First of all, is the group authoritarian? Is there a leader who has no meaningful accountability? Is there no tolerance for critical questions or inquiry? Is there a lack of financial transparency in the group? Do you know where the money goes? Does the group influence people to have unreasonable fears about the outside world, about leaving? Is there any legitimate reason to leave the group? Or are people who leave always wrong? And is there a repeated pattern of grievances about the group? Do they have a history of bad press? Are they controversial? Why are they controversial? I think if you drill down in most of these stories with these groups.
Do they have a history of bad press? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Their leader has 20. I don't know. Who is the leader, though? That's the question. Is Aidan Kearney the leader, or is Karen Reed the leader? So if you say the leader is an accused murderer on trial for cop killer, and maybe the second in command, or flying monkey, Aidan Kearney, her and her lawyer's flying monkey, Aidan Kearney, who's getting really rich being a flying monkey, has, 20 witness harassment counts on now? So that's what I think it is. Am I right on that? I think so.
That are controversial, you will find the reason that they're controversial is that they have hurt people, and there is a similar pattern of grievances and complaints against them. And finally, is the leader always right? Can the leader ever be wrong? Or is everyone who disagrees with the leader automatically wrong? I mean, if you look for those common characteristics or warning signs, you can begin to determine whether a group is potentially unsafe or not.
Right. I mean, is there any difference? Is there any disagreement in Free Karen Reed? I mean, if you ask them, Karen Reed's totally innocent. She was framed, and they always give the same reason. It's sort of like, but why come the butt dials? Why come the mirrored Sallyport video? Never mind that all the video was recorded that way. They had multiple cameras and they were all recorded in a mirrored image, as often is surveillance video. Why come this? Why come that? What's the chain of custody? Bad investigation. Well, why is it bad? I was just looking at footage today of the police trying to put up crime scene tape in a blizzard. I mean, I just questioned whether any of these Free Karen Read people could do a better investigation. I would say not.
If someone has become involved in a destructive cult or a potentially unsafe group, you will notice changes in their behavior. They may become extremely obsessive about the group. You may feel that their individual personality is fading and they're almost becoming clone-like, saying the same things, acting the same way as other members in the group.
That gave me chills. They all say the same things. And they're all super aggressive. It's not like, excuse me. Sometimes they'll do it just so you don't delete their comment before they start insulting you. Like, excuse me. Sometimes they'll pretend they don't have an opinion on it. But generally, they're like aggressive right out the bat. They're insulting. And there can be no discussion. There's no discussion of facts. It's all the same thing over and over. Why come the butt dials? I mean, can you think of any other reason for butt dials besides covering up a murder? Any other reason? Maybe the call didn't connect. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they accidentally did call. Maybe they called and they are lying. There's another reason. And lying for a reason other than covering up a murder. Could those things be true? But nobody asks why Karen Read lies so much.
They may respond to any questions you raise about the group as persecution, dismissing these questions, refusing to answer them, claiming that any criticism of the group is equal to persecution. You may notice that their conversation is rather stilted and that they're using the same kind of group verbiage and that they have a growing dependency on the group to make value.
Group verbiage, and also Aidan Kearney has started all these nicknames. This is something that all cults have, is their own language, so that everyone gets a nickname. And if you're not in the cult, you wouldn't know what they're talking about. Aunt Bev, blah, 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 this, that, the other. I mean, they really do have their own cult language. Free Karen Read.
Judgments for them, to tell them what to do, that their decision-making process has been largely short-circuited. And they may not seem very spontaneous. There may be a real loss of spontaneity, of a sense of humor, and they may become increasingly isolated and cut off from.
Right. I said, I think I was asked on Core TV, and I mean, that's an impossible question to ask. I mean, without doing a survey of the entire town, but what's my feeling? And without living in that town, about the amount of support. I have friends nearby, or I know people nearby, let's put it that way. But I do not think Karen Read is the majority, but for Free Karen Read people, everyone except a tiny minority is Free Karen Read, because they've done such a good job propagandizing the public and the press. So, but those are the people that are following the case. I would definitely say we're in the minority of the people who follow the case in true crime, but in the world and the outside world, I think it's certainly her support is exaggerated. But Free Karen Reed people heard that as she thinks that Karen Reed, majority of the people are not Free Karen Reed. Well, yeah, if you don't follow the case, if you follow the case a little bit, you might think she's guilty.
From communicating with old friends.
And Larry P says McAlberts, right? That's another thing they'll say to you. Are you related? Are you McAlbert? Roberta McAlbert? That's what I've been called.
And family, particularly if they have raised critical questions about the group. And so if you look at these warning signs about, if you look at these warning signs of personal behavior, you can begin to identify what might be someone submerging into what could be a destructive cult. The most important thing for families to remember, if you think that someone that you love is involved in a destructive cult, is to remain calm. Do not say scary things to your family member like, oh, you're in a cult. That group is a cult. I mean, using that word will very likely cut off all communication. So what a family investigating needs to know first is remain calm and be focused, do research, go through a process of assessment. You may be wrong. The group may not be a destructive cult. They may just be an unusual fringe group that you don't appreciate, but that is not destructive. And ultimately, what you need to develop, if the group is a destructive cult, is coping strategies. How to cope with that person who is in the group, what to say, what not to say, avoiding arguments, avoiding confrontation. And then you can begin to consider other options, which may be an intervention to try and get that person out of the group. I discuss.
Right. So see, this is where it differs from a cult, because they don't make demands on your time. I think people get involved to the degree that they want to be involved. But I haven't heard absolute demands on their time. But once you get involved, my understanding is that you have to do the group's bidding. You have to be totally compliant to the group. So, and once you leave and change your mind, they cut you off, which is very cult-like. And there's also, on this side of the fence, there's some people who, if you don't share their opinion exactly, like if you don't share their opinion that it's like an accident and Karen Reed didn't mean to do it, which I certainly don't share. I think Karen Reed did this on purpose, willfully. That you'll be exiled. And I see these apologists for Karen Reed, like, if she just had showed some contrition, I would have supported her. Really? I wouldn't have. I don't know. No matter how sincere, if she just said she was sorry, you would have supported her? Shocking. Scary.
All of these stages of assessment, coping strategies, and weighing options in the book Cults Inside Out. Anyone that is going through that process of assessing whether a loved one is involved in a destructive cult or not can go to the Cult Education Institute web database and see if there's any information. If there have been complaints posted through the message board, there are more than 120,000 entries there, or to see if there have been articles or research papers written about the group. The web, the internet, is an enormous resource for any family that is researching whether or not a loved one is in a destructive cult. And that is what I would urge families to do.
Well, they say also that families are getting divided over Karen Reed in this area and not talking to each other because one feels one way and one feels the other way. mean, that's how heated it's getting. I was also looking at the board member meetings, and they were just so destructive that they had to hold these board meetings online. It seems like the town was unprepared in dealing with how disruptive and dangerous this movement was, and kind of waited. Ditto, I think also I put a lot of responsibility on Judge Cannoni's shoulders. A stricter judge would have put an end to this, would have put a gag order right away. It probably would have helped Karen Reed if she put a gag order in Karen Reed too. Probably would have helped Karen Reed. Sadly for Karen Reed, I'm not sad, but sadly for her, she's probably sad about it. So what they did in Karen Reed is that they gambled and they said, well, we'll start this innocence fraud campaign in an effort to get the charges dropped, but the charges didn't get dropped. And they also started the federal investigation with the same aim, and that didn't work. So then they had to go to court, and then they didn't have much really at trial. Their defense wasn't much. It's amazing that it did it as well as it did, and I think it did so well because there were free Karen readers on the jury. That's the scariest thing about watching this trial the second time. We may go through, 8-10 weeks more of trial, and none of it will matter because you can put any information in front of a free Karen reader and they'll dig in their heels. So I hope this jury has been picked carefully. I hope there's no free Karen readers on it. I think someone asked me, was that Lou Coldfax, if I'm going to Denim? I don't think so. It's quite expensive for me, and I don't think my audience is so anxious to see me in the courtroom. So no, I don't think so. It's already, and it would be a small percentage of a chance. It's done by lottery, me even getting in. So yeah, I'm going to be watching like the rest of you from New York City.
Be careful and be deliberate and go through a process of due diligence to determine whether or not the group truly is a destructive cult.
I thought that was really telling. It's like, do you know where the money's going? Does it? No one knows where the money's going in free Karen Reed. When I heard that, I was like, oh. They certainly you're excommunicated if you change your mind, which is really cult-like thinking all around. We should be able to be friendly with people who have differences of opinion from us. So one of the techniques they use is brainwashing, and Rick Ross, not the rapper, the cult expert, talks about brainwashing here. I thought this was also some compelling material. Take a listen.
People use the term brainwashing and they really don't understand what that term means. That's a popular culture word that came out of the 50s from a journalist by the name of Hunter. But what it really means is it's a synthesis, if you will, of coercive persuasion and influence techniques that have been crystallized and focused like a laser on people within certain groups to break them down, change them, and then freeze them in a certain mindset. Now, this was first explored by a professor at MIT by the name of Edgar Schein, and he published a book about coercive persuasion in 1961. And Schein said literally there are 3 phases to coercive persuasion. Break them down by whatever means necessary, break them down. And then change them, and then after having changed them, freeze them. So he would call it.
See, I don't think the Karen Reed movement is doing this. I think they're propagandizing them. And I think that they do love bomb them. I mean, I think if you're on their side, they'll accept you and won't criticize you. You never hear any of the free Karen Reed people really criticizing their own, unless it's some kind of personal issue. But there's no real discussion within the group of evidence. It's all kind of the same thing. They'll discuss it, but within a parameter like when was the evidence planted? So, and they still don't have a cohesive story from beginning to end, how this happened that takes into consideration all the evidence. It's just impossible. What they're saying happened is impossible, and there's no evidence for it. So in that way, it's very cult-like, but I don't think that there is this kind of breaking down or culture of confession that other cults have. But they certainly work very much like Scientology with litigating people as a way to punish them, just keep them in the legal system by litigating them or protesting them or making their life as unpleasant as possible. All that we've seen with Scientology. Has anybody seen the Squirrel Busters in Scientology? They're very much like a free Karen Reed type group. So this was this group. So the Squirrel Busters, for those who don't know, so if you use L. Ron Hubbard, who started Scientology, if you use his tech, they call it technology, but there's really it's really just a bunch of hooey. But anyway, if you use his technology without paying Scientology, without it being in proper Scientology quarters, there's a million rules in Scientology, and all Scientologists are very concerned with following those rules because there's punishment if you don't follow all the rules, of course. But one of their main leaders left Scientology and was teaching Scientology independently and charging for it. And they went to his home. This guy's name was Marty Rathbaum. He eventually left and then he came back. So for the while, he was suing the Scientology, and then all of a sudden his lawsuit just disappeared and he went back and started making anti-Scientologist videos. So making critical videos about the critics of Scientology. So they went to his home and just harassed the crap out of him, calling themselves Squirrel Busters. So that's what it's called. You're squirreling the tech if you use the technology outside of Scientology headquarters.
Unfreezing, changing, refreezing. Shine was then followed by Robert J. Lifton, who studied POWs held by the North Koreans during the Korean conflict. And he then wrote the book Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, which was published in 1961. Lifton was a professor at Harvard Medical School and also the John Jay School of Law. So he basically, in the 22nd chapter of the book, Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, came up with 8 criteria to determine whether or not a thought reform program is ongoing. And these criteria are basically a snapshot of the engine that drives what we call brainwashing. And it's composed of milieu control, which is control of the environment, everything you see and experience. Then mystical manipulation. Things appear to happen spontaneously, but in fact they are really contrived, scripted, and not spontaneous.
Not spontaneous, almost like Karen Reed coming in late to that hearing with her herd of lawyers. It was supposed to be spontaneous. Like, she's never been late for a hearing before. Does anybody remember that? Karen Reed came in, then gave Hank Brennan the stink eye, then narrowed her eyes at Hank Brennan. Karen Reed did. That's certainly some mystical manipulation right there. It's supposed to be spontaneous.
Spontaneous. Then there is the demand for purity, which is the demand that a person divide their entire life into black and white, the pure and the impure. There are no shades of gray, no middle ground. And then the cult of confession, that is, that there is no area of a person's life that they are entitled to privacy, that the group has the right to demand confession about almost anything, even about things that may not really even be true. There is a kind of element of purging going on, where everything about a person's life is being examined and being confessed to the group. And then Lifton calls another of his criteria.
See, I would just say that they use more fear techniques. If you don't agree with them, they'll go into your past, they'll out you. It's just more of a fear technique. Any kind of privacy, they'll dox you, out you, go through your whole history of whatever, and try to find something embarrassing and paper it all over the internet. So punish you for not agreeing with them.
The sacred science, which is that what the group teaches is absolute, that it cannot be questioned, and that anyone who questions it is unholy, unscientific, absolutely wrong. So that this is an absolute belief, that the group's beliefs can never be questioned, can never be critically questioned in any way. Then there is the element of what Lifton calls loaded language, which means thought-terminating cliches that are used to sum things up in a way that stops critical thinking.
Right. So, like, I get comments like, I really liked your show until you took this position on Karen Reed. Just all these things to try to encourage you to shut up. I thought you were reasonable until I heard your view on Karen Reed. No reasonable person has your view. It's just a bunch of insults, really. Combined with like 5 talking points. And I call it the why come. The Karen Reed why come. Why come the butt dials? Why come there was butt dials? Why come the Sally Port video was mirrored? Why come Arca said that John O'Keefe wasn't hit by a car, huh? Why come? Why come? Proctor, you think the investigation was good? Why come you think it was a good investigation? Why come? Why come? There is no such thing as a perfect investigation. Investigations are done by human beings. They're not done by robots. And life is a constant thing in flux, So that's how I'd put it. It's like about 4 or 5 points. Why come? The why come.
For example, in Scientology, people who are not Scientologists are suspected of being suppressive persons or potential trouble sources, which means a person that might be connected to a suppressive person. So there are these cliches, these labels within a particular group that terminate critical thinking. I don't have to consider what you have to say because you're a suppressive person. You're an SP.
Right. You're a McAlbert. We don't have to listen to you. And Nexium used the same word, the same phrase. A lot of Nexium was stolen from Scientology. They use the same phrase, suppressive suppressive persons for their enemies. I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, more brainwashing. Is Karen Reed and her lawyers, David Yannetti, through the help of Aidan Turtleboy Kearney and all their like-minded content creators, brainwashing people. We'll talk about it when we get back. Don't go anywhere. Also, big surprise for you guys at the end of the show. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light. Hard task warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy, exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light.
Okay, we're back. And if you're just joining us, we're talking today about, is Free Karen Reed a cult? You're listening to Rick Allen Ross on brainwashing. Let's hear what else he has to say about it.
Or a PTS, a potential trouble source. And then there is the criteria doctrine over person. And that is basically everything around you must be cataloged according to the group. Your own feelings, your thoughts, your emotions must be cataloged according to the doctrine of the group. Whatever is consistent with the group is valid. Whatever is inconsistent is invalid and must be purged. And then finally, the most devastating of Lifton's criteria is the dispensing of existence. And that is literally the right to exist. The person who leaves the group ceases to exist. If they come back, they can exist again. Family and friends.
Wow, that sounds very much like Free Karen Reed. They cease to exist when they change their mind and they have a difference of opinion. But if they embrace the same opinion, they're welcome back in. They don't just cease to exist. They get really treated terribly.
That question the group, you can cut them off, dispense with their existence. So you take these 8 criteria, and it doesn't matter what the group says it's doing. If 6 of the 8 are ongoing and evident, it's enough to run a thought reform program. If you will, what Lifton is saying is that each one of these criteria is like a piece in a machine. One relies on the other. The cult of confession enables mystical manipulation, enables the dispensing of existence. The dispensing of existence cuts off an outside frame of reference and reinforces milieu control. So what you can see is how one of these criteria enables and reinforces another. Also important in understanding brainwashing is the role of information and communication. Flo Conway and Jim Siegelman wrote a book called Snapping, which was published in 1978. That book talks about what they call information disease. That is, that if a group can control everything that goes into the mind, everything you see, everything you experience, everything you hear, they can control the mind itself. And they call it information disease because people are stricken by the control of information. That is, the group can do harm to people through the control of information. Conway and Siegelman would later write a book called Holy Terror about extreme fundamentalist groups, and they would talk about emotional control or emotional manipulation, literally being able to manipulate the emotions of people. And then Margaret Singer, the psychologist who taught at UC Berkeley, who wrote the book Cults in Our Midst, would talk about behavior being controlled in various groups, how they would control behavior. And she would say basically that the group was ultimately creating a deployable agent or a pawn through their process. And she would say to me, because I knew Margaret Singer and we used to talk and compare notes. And at one point she said to me, Rick, brainwashing is really nothing more than a confidence game. And a cult leader is running a con. The difference between the average con game and a cult is that a typical con artist will get the money and leave town. A cult con artist will keep running the same con on the same people, victimizing them for the foreseeable future. And she said,
Right, that's the question, is what I was asking myself. When Karen Read is either acquitted or she's convicted or convicted of some small charge, what is Turtle Boy going to do? Now, I think if she's convicted, especially if she's convicted with with a charge that has significant time attached to it, this will not end. Free Karen Read will not be over. It will actually be, the movement will live up to its name, and Karen Read will be in prison, and it will go on trying to overturn the conviction of Karen Read. And I would certainly think that Aidan Kearney would be involved in that. I mean, there's so much money in that. And I would think that all these Innocence Project lawyers, some have already been involved pre-trial, but would come out post-trial, because the incentive for them is money, is if they can get Karen Read's conviction overturned, then they can sue civilly for wrongful arrest, wrongful imprisonment, wrongful conviction, and get a multi-million-dollar payout. And we've seen so many of these, like Central Park 5 got $40 million. I mean, it's just making these lawyers so rich, this movement. So they're overturning convictions 30 years after, every appeals court's looked at it and affirmed the guilt, affirmed the conviction, and they're just overturning these convictions. So I don't think it will end, but I think if he'll always keep it as a side thing, but what's going to be the next corruption, or what's going to be the next story that he's going to cover of corruption? But I think he's going to have the same very much a similar audience. And there are good people who have gotten bamboozled by this movement. They are not all, I really kind of like when people call them crazy, or, there are unwell people, there are personality disorder, there are the criminal element, but in there's some really good people who just got fooled. And it's a very predatory movement. I don't know if it is quite a cult, has quite the control that you would need for a cult, but it has many cult-like elements, certainly. So here's what I was talking about when I was talking about, just share my screen real quick, the Squirrel Busters. Doesn't this seem like free Karen Reed? So here they are. Also, something Scientology does that free Karen Reed does, they film their enemies. They invade their privacy of their home.
Come on, Marty. You got anything to say? You can't even defend yourself on this, can you?
What's your name?
I gave you my name, Marty.
What's your name?
Marty, I gave you my name. Now let's go take a look at a folder.
What's your name?
Why don't you answer his question?
Marty, let's take a look at a folder.
What's your name?
Marty, let's take a look at a folder. You can't touch him, Marty.
What's your name?
Come on, Marty. Go get me your meter. You're squirreling, and we would like to
What's
see
your
that
name,
bring to an
please?
end.
You guys don't identify yourselves.
I identified myself when you opened the door,
I'm going to
Marty.
ask you to leave.
We'll be glad to leave, Marty, but we would like to interview you. Why don't you come downstairs and we'll interview you? What do you got to say about that, Marty? How about that?
I don't have anything to say.
Often, and the scary thing about people who leave cults is that they often go right back in, like Marty Rathbound did, or they often go to another cult. Mark Vicente was in 2 cults. First, he was in the Ramtha cult, and then he went to the Nexium cult. So, or they leave a predatory or coercively controlling. This also is true for people who leave coercively controlling relationships. They'll go right to another coercively controlling relationship or predatory person. And often the people who leave cults will leave a cult but go to someone who coercively controls them or has undue influence on their life in some way. It's a pattern you see, but doesn't this seem very much like the rolling rally so what Aidan Kearney did in July of 2023 is he did this rolling rally where they went from house to house in their cars of the alternative suspects, basically, and called them killers, went to their home, to Jen McCabe's home, etc., and went from home to home to home to home. And Gretchen Voss, the writer from Boston Magazine, was at that rolling rally. She was part of it.
Identified
Well, I told you I was.
punk who comes with 4 people to my door unidentified.
Marty, I'm with Squirrel Busters Productions.
Goofball outfits.
Marty, I'm with Squirrel Busters Production doing an investigation on you and your squirrel technology that you're promoting.
Okay, you're interrupting the delivery of Scientology, which is...
Marty, you don't deliver Scientology and haven't for years.
No meters.
No meter, no PC folders. I've been reading your blogs, Marty. There's just no way you're delivering anything to do with Scientology.
All right, I've got you guys now. Now leave.
Okay, we'll be glad to leave.
Good. And don't come back.
Marty, why don't you come downstairs and we'll interview you on this point?
I told you to leave. Get out
Oh,
of
no,
here.
I'm leaving.
Beat it. Now who's busting who?
Marty, you're the one who's busted because you're the squirrel.
I said get off my property, boy.
Okay, we'll get up the property.
Why don't we come out here and finish the interview, Marty?
Get off my property, big boy.
Okay, Marty, so you want to do the interview out here?
Here we we go. Let's
You guys
talk.
going to stick around here?
Yeah, Marty, we're here for weeks and weeks.
As long as it takes.
Can you give me your name?
Marty, come on. My name is John Allender. I gave it to you at the
John Allender?
That's right.
Or you're the OT8?
Marty.
You came all the way from San Jose. David Miscavige had you come all the way from
Marty,
San Jose
I came
to
out
mess
here-
with my PC who's here.
I came out here. Marty,
Marty, you can't do that.
you can't do that. Marty,
I just did it.
that's my personal property, Marty.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another technique, right? They lure you into some kind of embarrassing situation, or they lure you into doing something criminal. So they sort of assess your buttons, what are your buttons, and try to push them until you lash out and say and do or say something criminal. Yeah, the Squirrel Busters. Classic, a classic Scientology video. Yeah, it's creepy, right? Right. They are Scientologists. They are Scientologists, Bonnie. Bonnie says this reminds me of the Scientologist Club. They are Scientologists, Bonnie. They reminds you. Bonnie gets it right on the money, Bonnie. This reminds me of the Scientologist cult. Because they are Scientologists. Did the not blinking tip you off? Tip you off. Yeah, Tom CPU. Does anybody remember Tom CPU? Let's take a look at that. One second. Yeah, hold on. I know I have this. Really. I just played it the other day. Hold on. Did I erase it? Hold on one sec. Be right back. Let me get this. Okay. All right, here we go. Here we go. It only took me a little bit. I just wasn't planning on showing this, but be a nice contrast to what we're watching. Hold on. Let me go back.
Zone right now. I am in the buffer zone, deep. Yeah, that's some wind.
Oh, this is
How you doing, bud? Good.
I didn't notice the pug first time around. That is a cute pug. That is a cute dog, no?
I'm going to hang around with these other guys here.
Yeah, hit that smash and like button today, guys. Helps a lot.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You don't have media credentials, you got to go behind the buffer zone, okay? Or you're going to be subject to arrest. Go follow them.
Okay.
You're being told right now, and you're live, and you're being recorded.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I'm not media.
No, you're not. Go back there. You're being subject to being arrested.
Can I come when she comes into court? Can I follow her?
No, you can't.
Not even.
can't.
I have to
No, you
go
can't.
outside the buffer forever.
No, you can't. You go.
Have a good day, sir.
That's still my favorite. So I have to go outside the buffer zone forever. Forever. I'm never allowed to walk on the sidewalk again. What if I walk on another sidewalk? Am I never supposed to walk on the sidewalk again? Am I never supposed to be at the at the Norfolk courthouse again? In Denham, Mass? What if I just follow her and...
It is. Okay.
Oh, this is so... So that's basically what I have for today. But I have a surprise for you. Not a song about Marie Russell yet. That's still in the works. Probably all of Karen Reed's expert defense witnesses need their own song. But new video for the closer. Have a great one, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow at 6. Thanks so much for listening.